All right, so let's get started. Today we wanted to cover rental workflows, so creating rental agreements and moving the inventory to rental status using Oil Country OS. Now, uh, uh, aside from just the inventory management aspect of this, rentals can be kind of tricky since the inventory is always going to be returning to your hands, and really you own it the whole time. So hopefully this webinar will show you how to do that quickly and accurately with Oil Country OS. So first of all, let's look at my database right quick. I'm just going to go and search for pipe, and we're going to be using pumps and tanks, which are I just created some generic inventory. As you can see, each of these have a individual serial number, and they're all in status ready to rent. Now this status was actually a custom one I created for this webinar, which you can do through the admin console. And if you need help doing that, you can visit our support site. They're all currently in my webinar yard, and they're each kind of spread across these different racks. Important thing to note is that with general inventory like pumps and tanks and things that don't have footage, your bulk joint total, which is your bulk footage, is really always going to be zero. What we're concerned with is the bulk joint count, which is a quantity, how many you have. Each of these jobs represents an individual pump. So the joint count is always going to be 1 and the footage is going to be 0. But I'm just going to turn off this column that we don't need. Then we have a unit price assigned to these items. This is what we're going to charge essentially per day for these items. So renting out a pump from us is going to cost you $95 a day. All right, so if we open it up by double-clicking on it, we see kind of where the information is laid out. I've also put the serial number in the comments, so hopefully that will show up on our rental agreement a little bit easier to read without having to go into anything else. But you can specify vendors, makes, models, years, and for items like pumps and tools that that you're renting out, it would also be convenient to put an image, a picture of that item here in this section right here. You can do so by clicking this folder icon right here and attaching whatever image you have for that particular piece of inventory. That way, anytime someone comes in here and opens it up, they can see exactly which one it is. They're different colors or what have you. All right, so to start off the rental workflow, we're going to start from the home screen, and it is essentially done in sales. Because it is a sale of essentially a service, if you will. Having clicked that, you'll notice a few buttons in the middle of the screen. Those being new quote, new sales order, and what we're interested in, new rental. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it's going to bring up our rental agreement screen. It's going to basically default to active rental. And it's not actually going to create anything until I select a customer. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to rent it out to Carlos Oil Inc. We can see our contact name has been pre-populated, and we're gonna add in some extra information. We're gonna say he had a PO number of 999, and the AFE that we're billing it to is AFE 55. We can add a date required if we want to. Maybe they require it in a week or so. We can go ahead and do that. We can add a salesman. We're gonna say that Victor is gonna sell it to him. Our payment terms, we're going to give them a 2% discount if they pay within 10 days. And then we're going to do our FOB, and we're going to say, they assume responsibility once it gets to the well that we're shipping it to. And of course, we're going to be shipping it from our location, which is Webinar Yard. So now I'm going to assign the well here on the ship to information. Now this information is good to put here on the rental agreement itself, because it'll auto-populate on any trucks or anything that you do there. So you don't have to include this information, but I highly recommend it. It'll let you keep track of where this inventory is actually heading to. So once we have that, it's always a good idea to save. Just click save. As you can see, this well had a default tax rate of 8.5%. So that's all set in the locations manager. So, all right, so now that we have the customer information and where we're actually going to be renting this to, we can go ahead and put some of the inventory that we're going to rent to them. So what I'm going to do is click Add Item. And we're always going to pick from existing job or tally, because you can't really rent out what's not already tracked in your system, right? You can't rent it out if you don't have it. So we're always going to pick the second option. And it's going to bring up the screen, which should look very familiar. I'm going to make it big. It's saying, okay, my company's renting it out. We're looking for inventory that I have. So Beast Test Company, it automatically filters for that. Now you can add in locations. Let's say you have multiple locations. I'm going to say it's all in Webinar Yard. And I'm only looking to rent out some pumps. So pumping unit. There we go. I can click search and kind of narrow down what I'm looking for. As you can see, it's set up how we had it in the Pipe Explorer, so I can quickly come in here and see the serial number and what's available. What I would highly recommend is to do this by status. As you see, the status of these jobs is ready to rent. So for accuracy and to make sure that you're not committing inventory that is not really available yet, it is imperative that you use the status filter on the search to narrow it down to only things that you can actually rent out. So we're going to select P1100. And once I'm done, I can just select it here with this column and then come down here and hit OK. And since we only have, one unit, right, one pump, we're going to select the entire thing. So it's added this line item to our rental agreement, right? We see it's a part number pump, status ready to rent. Here's the unit price that we assigned to it, the joint count, which is the quantity, how many pumps we have, and our comment. If you remember, I put the serial number in the comment just so it would show up here and be much easier for us to read. So now I'm going to kind of specify a little bit more about how we're going to bill this item to our client. Instead of charging by each, we're going to charge by days. Okay. Now, the joint count is going to remain the same. What I'm going to edit is the quantity, which will then get multiplied by my unit price to give me the subtotal. So first I have to right-click on my quantity here and hit Edit Quantities. And now I can specify how many days, tentatively the customer is willing to, or is wanting to rent this out for. So I can say, 25 days. You see that my total changed. So I'm basically renting pump P1100 for 25 days. It's one pump at a unit price of $95 per day. And that comes out to $2,300. Up here in the total section, you can see that my tax rate hasn't been applied just yet. That's because I need to mark this checkbox, taxable, next to my extended cost. If you don't check it, the system doesn't calculate tax into that. So if we're going to mark that, we can then see that it's $201 of tax, and our new total is $2,500, or a little bit over that. Again, it's always a good idea to save before we continue anywhere. So now another thing that we need to do is we need to mark this job as no longer being, available to rent. So let's just take a quick look at the item. If I double click on this number here, the job item number, which is the unique identifier, we can see all the information for this particular piece of inventory, excuse me. And if you recall, it's just the same as if I would have double clicked on it in the Pipe Explorer to bring up this information. So we have a status right here that says ready to rent. So now that it's added on the order, I can go ahead and checkpoint that to rented, right? You can use this drop down, or you can hit this checkpoint button up here, to move it between checkpoints. Okay. And if we refresh that, you'll see that the status has changed. Anytime you don't see your changes, you've made a change and you click save and you don't see it kind of update, just click the refresh button. There's always one everywhere. Now, I did that by double-clicking on the item to open it up. I could also right-click on it and hit checkpoint and change the checkpoint that way. Now, if we open it up, we see that the job itself has changed. So I just wanted to show you kind of where it's doing that work, but an easier way is to just right-click, hit checkpoint, and assign it to rented. So we're gonna say I didn't save my changes for the 25.00. Okay, save, and if we refresh, there we go. Okay, so now we have a pump. It's status of rented, and we're going to charge the customer. So now you can do this as many times as you want. So I'm going to go ahead and do another item for you. Hopefully a little bit quicker. So again, here's a good illustration of that idea that the status is your best friend when searching for these. You see that 5186 is now rented, so we don't want to see things that aren't available to be rented. So we're going to filter by ready to rent, and we want tanks in this scenario. We only want tanks. So I'm going to search for that, and we're going to add a tank to this rental agreement. So I'm going to select T1000. Okay. Again, we're going to select the entire thing since there's only one. And then we got to do a couple of things. Now, my master parts are set up so that the default unit of measurement for tank and pump is each, but you could set it up for days so that whenever you bring it onto a rental agreement, it'll just automatically do that. Next thing I got to do is say, we're going to rent this again for 25 days. This one is $125 a day. It too is taxable. And we're going to save that. And I think that, I need to change the status. So I'm going to right click on it, checkpoint, and assign it rented. And again, I'm going to save. If there's any other services that you need to add, you can use this button here, or you can just type in a part in the part number and description. You can just type in an item, any movement, any mileage, charges, anything like that if you're doing the shipping. If they're picking it up from your yard, then you probably just need the inventory itself. Once we're done, we can go ahead and print out the rental agreement. You can see we have the description, the comment, so we have our serial number there if they want to see that. It's not necessary. Oh, did it change my days? I didn't save my days. That looked weird. Okay, 25 days. Okay, save. I was going to short myself on that one. Okay, so let's print it out again. And there we go, 25. So you can see that quantity unit of measure equals your extended price. So your unit price times your quantity. And joints essentially is how many pumps or how many tanks. In this case, just one apiece. Down here you have your payment details, so what they're agreeing to, that 2% discount, where we're moving it to, the expected delivery date if we're doing the shipment, or they're picking it up, the expected delivery date for when the customer needs it on location. And at the top you have your customer information, your representative or your salesperson, and this is important to track, see how your salespersons are performing. Now, we could also get a digital signature from the customer. We could email this to them, or if we have a salesperson in the yard with a tablet, we could get a digital signature. So let me close this out, and the way to do so is using this checkout button. So if you have this tablet out in the field and your customer's on location, you can actually have them sign here, and it'll put that digital signature on the printout. But for the most part, I think you'll be using the send email button to send this exact form to your client. There we go. So this is the rental agreement. All right, so let's go ahead and move the process a little bit further along. So like jobs, these sales orders have checkpoints. So we want to checkpoint this to an invoice so we can actually collect money on it. So just click the checkpoint button, hit invoice, and whenever you print now, it's going to say invoice. Now it may seem like a small change, but it makes it much clearer to your customers that payment is required for this. And you see the layout is a little bit differently. It has the payment terms and bill to information at the top, the total breakdown, and then who's going to sign for it. So we can also send that via email if you have Outlook configured with the system. So let's go take a look at how this, let's go see how this looks in our inventory management system, i.e. the Pipe Explorer or our yard view. So I'm going to close this order out. Let me save it right quick, and we see it's order number 55. And we're going to go into search for pipe. And if I just do a blank search with no filters, it's going to return everything that I own, essentially. And we can see that the two items that are rented and not really in my location are, show up here. Again, this is imperative. The status is what's going to help you keep track of this. So we're only interested in what is rented. So what we currently have out doing work, making us some money. And this is going to apply to any part numbers. We can narrow it down if you have, 100 tanks. Maybe you just want to look at, you want to exclude the pumps or something. I could also search by serial number here, T1000, and return, oops, there we go, and return, only the items with that serial number. Obviously, they're going to be unique. And if you want to know kind of, let's say you found the item here in Pipe Explorer and you want to see, kind of where it's heading or anything like that, we can dig in further. And if we, well, let's do it from the Pipe Explorer. If we right click on this item, we can open the sales order. And we're back to this screen where we have all the detailed information about it. Now, one of the tricky things with rentals is tracking it as active inventory on a location that's not your own, i.e. a well or something, because you never really got rid of it. It's just in someone else's hands at the moment. So if you look at the Pipe Explorer, you see that this is still in webinar yard. We never really moved it out of our yard in the system, right? We said that it was rented and we filtered our inventory to not show this, and we can see that it's assigned to an order. And actually, I want to see what order number it's assigned to. So I'm going to go down to sales and hit internal order number and move this a little bit further up. So now I see what order number it's actually assigned to. So 55. We could then filter for order number 55, search, and then we have our two items that are placed on that order. So that might be one of the quicker ways. But back to my point about location, it still shows that it is in the webinar yard. We can always, now this part's kind of optional, we can always transfer these items to a separate location, i.e. that well, to reflect that. To do so, we can select it here and hit the relocate option by right-clicking. So I selected both of them, and I'm going to hit relocate. We're going to select everything, and then we're going to say we're going to move it to the well. Okay. And now we see that the yard reflects the actual well that we shipped it to, or where the customer ended up taking it. So for now, I'm going to go back to the sales order or the rental agreement. Sales order and rental agreement are the same thing. And we can also accomplish this through this screen here. If we right-click on each one of these line items, we can relocate from this screen, right? Selecting entire bulk, and you see it brings us back to the same dialog. So we can incorporate that as part of our regular workflow if you want to. Again, this is an optional piece since we're always tracking the inventory. You know, you only really need to do it from a checkpoint standpoint and the order. So instead of, you know, relocating it, we could just right click, open sales order, and then get the location information. That's really where you have a choice on how you're going to do this, how you're going to customize this workflow. But both options are available to you. Okay. So again, here we have our rented items. We're going to go ahead and filter for only ready to rent items. You could also, for example, let's say I wanted to add another item to order 55 at a later time. I could come in here to our Pipe Explorer, select the item I want to add to it, and right click. Right click is your best friend, and we're going to do add to order. And we're going to type in the order number that we want to add it to. So now we see it's on order 55. We're going to go ahead and open that sales order up. And there's our new line item. It's ready to rent. So again, we're going to have to checkpoint it to rented and then do our little manipulations here. So we're going to do days. I believe this was 25. This is taxable as well. We're going to save that. And then we're going to relocate this to the actual well. Just like I did in the Pipe Explorer, but I'm doing it all here. So really it's a pretty quick workflow. There's several ways to do it. So we're going to just make sure that's saved. All right. And now we can print out a new invoice for our customer. You can see that there's now two pumps, pump P1400 and P1100, as well as the tank. Okay. Closing that out, we see that our changes all reflect on our Pipe Explorer, so it's removed that from our ready to rent inventory. Okay. So now let's say we've received payment for this and we're ready to bring this stuff back into our location. If it's going to go through inspection, we can do that. But we need to essentially close this order out. So we can go ahead and hit the complete button at the top of the screen on the order. Now this is important. This dialog is a simple yes or no dialog, but it's going to affect you very, very heavily. When you're dealing with rentals, you never want to complete the jobs because they're never not part of your inventory, even though they're not in your location. We're doing that through the status or the checkpoints. So anytime you're dealing with rentals and it asks you to complete the jobs on order, we're going to say no. And it's not a problem if you accidentally hit it. We can always go back and reopen that. It's fairly simple, but just know that the correct answer there is to hit no. So now you see it's complete. It's kind of grayed out a lot of my options, so I can't really edit this anymore. What I can do, it's not even going to let me edit that. So we're going to need to go back to Pipe Explorer. And we're going to say, we're going to search for everything that was on order number 55 because we got to bring it back in. See, these are still considered rented and in our well. So what I need to do is select all three of them, and we're going to right click and relocate them. And we're going to relocate them back to our webinar yard. Now, if you have an inspection rack or something like that, you might want to go ahead and just place them there until you know that they're good to go. I'm going to put them on A2. Relocate everything. You see now they're all on A2 webinar yard. And one last thing we need to do after everything's been checked out is use this checkpoint again. and bring them back to ready to rent. And now we have all our inventory back. Right? And we can see the last order that these were ever placed on. So even though they're ready to rent, we can go back and check the last order that they were on. And this will update as soon as you add it to another rental agreement. That's pretty much the rental workflow. Again, there's some key points, those being never complete the jobs or tallies. We always want to keep them active inventory. And you have the option to do the relocation if you want to. And again, that can all be done from the order screen. So it can all be done from this screen. If we take a look at the reports section, we can go into the sales reports and see completed sales, order details, rental summaries. Let's just see if this one will run. There we go. We have that, pump was rented to a particular location. So you have some reports available to you. If you're doing quotes to rentals, then you can do a quote conversion report, which will show you how effective your salespeople are and how many quotes you've converted in a particular time. You can always apply filters to these, as well as open sales. Open sales, don't be confused by the word sales. This will apply to rental as well. So if we had any open ones, this will return it. And it looks like I do. I have a practice one I was working on earlier. And let's take a look at our completed sales, and we should see, there we go, order 55. We can apply a date filter to it if we wanted to just look at this month. We can see that order 55, we were talking to Mr. Carlos Garcia. We shipped it to The Well. It was billed to AFE 55, and we made roughly $8,500 off of that. So the rental agreement, the rental workflow has access to these to this suite of reports, so you can kind of break down the information however you want to see it. And that's pretty much it. This recording will be up on our YouTube videos page. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to contact us at support@archondata.com. If you want to do a private training session for this particular piece itself, if you want to do kind of a refresher course or hash out any questions, contact us. We'd love to do that for you. If you have any questions on how to do any particular things as it pertains to rentals, again, we're very happy to help. We also have several articles on the matter at our support website, Support and Learning Center. It's support.archondata.com. And that same URL, you can actually start a live chat with us. Someone's always on watching the live chat if you just have a quick question or something like that. But thank you again, and that's about it.